Welcome to the Fourth and Forever podcast. I am your host, Josh Kirby, and this is episode 3, covering week 2 of the NFL. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. Would love to be able to connect with everyone on the other side of the screen, and let's get into it. First and foremost, we are going to talk about Sunday Night Football. Last week we had an electric game. Two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, facing off in a wild 15-point comeback finish, leaving the Bills over the Ravens. It was an incredible game. Both teams scored over 40. Many touchdowns were scored. And now we got to last night. The Minnesota Vikings having their home opener against the Atlanta Falcons in a really cool quarterback rematch. These two quarterbacks met up in college just a few years ago in the national championship, with J.J. McCarthy and the Michigan Wolverines taking home the national championship. Last night was way different. Michael Penix and his team got the win, but I wouldn't say either quarterback looked great either way. I would say one thing I want everyone to remember, which is what I'm trying to remember: Michael Penix has only started now 5 games. J.J. McCarthy has only started 2 games. So it's almost like we're seeing, even though neither of them are in their rookie season, it's almost like we're seeing 2 rookie quarterbacks play. Defense is trying to figure them out. They're trying to learn the defenses. They're trying to learn the offense. The offense is trying to figure them out. The coaches are trying to figure out how their quarterbacks are going to maneuver and handle different situations and different play calls. It's a huge learning curve for both teams. So if you really look down at it and divvy through the stats and eye testing the game, I think Penix played well, not great. I think McCarthy he struggled. I think Chris Collinsworth kept saying it over and over again that this is a team that we have not seen play consistently 8 quarters of football. We saw them play 1 complete quarter last week and no complete quarter this week. So I think the Vikings have a lot of answers going into how they're going to maybe tone down the offense a little bit, simplify a little bit. I think JJ's a really smart kid, but sometimes when the lights are flashing and the defense was get home play after play after play, maybe it's time to bring it back a little bit, slow things up, get that run game more established, giving less pressure off your young quarterback. And I think probably the best part of the offense is I think a lot of young quarterbacks struggle when they have a star wide receiver to force feed him the ball. We saw that with Baker and OBJ at one point. We saw that with Dak and what's his name? Dez Bryant in Dallas. I don't want to see that here, and I don't think that's something we're seeing. I think Jay Jettis is a very team-friendly, team-oriented guy. I think he's really good at being a good team leader, and they really believe in JJ. So I think that's something that you can take away as a Vikings fan away from this game, is that you know that their game plan is going to be centered around trying to get wins, not so putting all that pressure on JJ. And I think by the end of the season, they will start clicking a little better. We'll start seeing more of what we saw at the end of last week's game come into for the rest of the season. As for the Falcons, I think we know who your star player is. I think it's a man that has very much established himself as a top 3 running back in the league. Maybe at least top 5. I say top 3 because I think it's him, Saquon, and Derrick Henry are sitting at the top 3. I give Derrick Henry and Saquon 1 and 2, with Bijan at 3. But I also will give shout out to Jonathan Taylor, who could be 3, could be 4. I think we have some good running back play week 2, but Bijan really showed what he can do for this team. He's a receiving threat, he's a running threat, and Saquon said it himself that this man, his jump cuts are insane. I mean, I haven't watched a player like him. He reminds me so much of when I watched LaShawn McCoy play or Le'Veon Bell with the Steelers. The way he can jump in and out of a cut, where he can make the defenders miss when for sure he's going to get tackled, where he can bounce off defenders. It's incredible. He is a big part of their offense, and they need to focus on him. That is going to help a young quarterback succeed. If you can get a very talented running back and a good running game going, you can start incorporating that play action pass more, which will open up passing lanes down the field, which will allow Penix to start divvying up the ball without having so much rush pressure on him each time. I think that is going to be, that's probably the biggest takeaway for them going into week 3, is how can we keep this pace going and eventually see how successful this team can be at. Both teams are now sitting at 1-1. I think it's going to be a long season for both teams. Whether it's good or bad, it's going to be a lot of figuring things out, figuring out what to do. I think both teams in a disadvantage in their division. I think Falcons have an easier division, while I think the Vikings having to play the Packers and the Lions within division. I think they're going to have a rougher road long term, while I think the Falcons have a little easier road, because I think Saints and Panthers are definitely not as good as them, and they had the Bucs number in week 1. Bucs won that game, but they had the Bucs number most of the game. So seeing how this plays out long term is going to be very interesting. I will say this eventually will kick into my picks for the week, where I will say that I picked the Vikings to win this game. I thought the juice from JJ last week was going to carry on to this week, but I think him being still so young really came up in a game where I think he got sacked 6 times, and it was all young defensive players, which is good on the Falcons. I think they're building a really strong culture and unit there, and they should be proud of what they were able to do. So let's see what they can do in week 3. And like I said, for the Vikings, it's a learning curve. It's going to be a bumpy road. I had y'all winning 7 games this season anyway. I didn't have y'all making the playoffs, and that's not an indictment of the coach or anyone. If anything, it's mainly, I think 7 wins is because of the coach. I think when you have a young rookie quarterback and an offensive line that isn't top tier, your main goal is to just figure out what you have. And I think pulling out 7 wins would be very impressive in a tough division, and overall, I would say still up and down schedule. So that was my recap for Sunday Night Football. Let's transition a little more to just talking about the week in general. I would say week 2 was so much different than week 1. I felt like this week more teams came to show what they got. A lot of teams got beat bad last week. I mean, the Dolphins came out and played a way better game. Now, I still don't love the game they played, and we will get more into that later, but they played a little harder. Niners having to roll with a backup quarterback and without George Kittle, and the Saints felt like that they had a good opportunity to win the game, so they played a little harder. Hey, we blew the Browns out. Ravens had their number, but the Browns, they fought. I watched the whole game. They were fighting. They weren't giving up. They didn't have the players to compete with our players. But that's another thing I will get into later. But I think the 1 o'clock games, the early window, we ended up, there was like 4 or 5 games within the last 2 minutes, 1-score games. It was incredible. It was a very exciting football to watch. I thought week 1 was really a lot of shockers and cool, interesting things happening. I think week 2 really stretched to, man, this league is still competitive, and you can't count anyone out. That's the biggest takeaway I'm taking from week 2. But with that takeaway, let me transition into my pretty okay week for picks. I went 3 for 5 on picks. My 2 losses being I had the Vikings going over the Falcons, and as we went over, that did not happen. My other loss was Bills-Jets. I will get into that in a sec. First, I want to talk about the Packers-Commanders, which was the first game of the week. I did a slight recap already in a separate video, so I don't want to go into too much details on that. But I did have the Packers winning that game, and it was a very telling game. I think the biggest takeaway from that game is the Commanders are an older team. Their offensive line is a little more suspect, like I thought it would be. I still don't love their run game, which I also thought was going to be an issue. I think they were too quick to send away Brian Robinson. They needed more of a power back, and they don't have that right now, especially now Eckler going down. Their run game really needs to improve. I think they love their young rookie, but he's not going to be the power bruiser they need. I think they really need to look at who's out there and see if they can bring in some muscle. And that defense is it's old players. They try to bring in some big names that are past their prime, and it's not working the way they want it to work. And I think they really need to sit back and realize what they want out of this season. Because right now, even though they're 1-1, and I think Jan Daniels is amazing, they're not on the trajectory they should be on this season. Because I think they look they don't look as good as they looked last year, and I think maybe because people didn't have film on JD and he was just spectacular halfway through the season. But I think they're starting off still figuring things out, and I think it can really hurt them long term in such a competitive NFC overall. Whereas for the Packers, I love the Packers. Like I said, I had them going to the Super Bowl. I had them winning the division. I'm not wavering on them. I still think they are great, and honestly, I see them being the top of the NFC for all season. So I don't want to drag too much on them, but let me talk about two of their division rivals in the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions. I said last week, Chicago needs to figure it out. They needed to really figure out how they're going to bounce back after a devastating loss in week 1, which I think they should have won that game, but they let it slip away. This was not a game they let slip away. This was a game where they got whooped. The Lions were having their way. Anyone who thought the Lions were done, you're wrong. Actually, a great stat I found out today. You know, the Lions have won 11 straight games after a loss. Good teams lose, as we see every year. No good team, not every year will there be a good team that goes undefeated. It doesn't happen. Good teams lose, good teams rally. This showed that 11 straight times after a loss, they will get the win. It shows they don't win, they don't lose back-to-back games, and they have the resilience and the ability to rally. And I think it comes straight from the head coach, Dan Campbell. It comes from the great leadership of Jared Goff, which I know I don't have a Detroit jersey, but I got his Rams jersey. Been a big fan since he was drafted. Amon-Ra St. Brown played great. I paid close attention to them, having him in a few of my leagues. 3 touchdown performance, amazing. Jameson Williams is still a deep ball threat. You have 2 great running backs that are still studded out, and a defense I think is going to constantly improve as the season going on, especially with a great leadership in Aiden Hutchinson. So I think that I'm very happy that I chose the Lions to win that game. I figured they would. It was competitive as hell on their side. The Bears need to figure it out. And I know there's some controversy, probably people talking about, well, when the score was already way up, why the Lions go for it on 4th instead of kicking the field goal. Ben Johnson said it best. What were they supposed to do? Dan Campbell doesn't kick field goals. He goes for it because he wants to step in your neck and win the game. And I love that mentality, because that's how you get a lead and maintain a lead and finish a game. It's like what the Ravens didn't do last week, but we did this week. It's when you are a really good team and you put up those numbers, the other team's strategy now is to get the ball down the field and score as fast as they can. You don't want to give them that opportunity to come back at any point, because we've seen amazing comebacks in the NFL, probably more recently than we ever have. I mean, starting all the way to 28-3 Super Bowl to the Vikings came back 30 points down against, I don't remember if it was the Colts or the Bills, whatever. It just, either way, you got all these great comebacks come in this league, and it's, you don't want to give your opponent a sense of they can come back. You don't want to give them a chance. Because if you give them an inch, they will take the mile every single time. So props to the Lions. They're back on their winning ways. They come to Baltimore in week 3, which I'm very excited for, because I will be in attendance for that game. So being it's a Monday night game and me being in attendance for the game, the pod might come out a few days later. I might do a live reaction at the game, where I'll play it by ear, see how it's going. But I'm excited for that game, and I think even the Lions said it best. Brian Branch in the locker room afterwards, he said, hey, go to celebrate, but we got Baltimore next. They know it's a serious game. We know it's a serious game. So it's going to be interesting to see these two teams match up. These two teams play with a lot of heart. They play with a lot of grit, and they have 2 really high-scoring offenses, but they also have very tough competitive defenses. This game could go many, many different ways, but I'm excited for any way it goes. Next will be my other pick. I had the Patriots beating the Dolphins, which happened. Give me a little scare. The Dolphins had a little more fight this week, but again, why does Tua look lost? Why does this team look like they don't know what they're doing? They're a professional NFL team. They've been coaching under the same regime for 4 years now. You should know what you're playing for. You should know why you're playing. You should know where to be, what to do. It doesn't make sense that there's so many players that have been ingrained in this offense all past couple of years, and they don't look like a solid unit. Now, it was a divisional game, so you assume it's going to be close, but it shouldn't. The Dolphins could have won this game. They really could have won this game. They had the ability to win this game. They had a beautiful return for a touchdown. You were like, man, that's the momentum swing. And then they let a return touchdown happen on the next play. It blows my mind that as a team, when the momentum swings your way, you can't capitalize on it. You let the other team, boom, get you one more time, and then they sneak out the victory. Now, I will say, Drake Maye played a good game. Let me see. I got his stats right here. Yeah, Maye, 19 for 23, 82% completion, 230 yards. He had 2 passing touchdowns, 31 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown. And that rushing touchdown was a great out of the pocket, right to the corner of the end zone. Looked beautiful. He looked more poised this week. He looked more comfortable, in control. I think a big part of that was the Dolphins just not being a good team and them just not really knowing what they're doing. I think Dolphins are such a bad team. They put up points. They fought harder, but they're not a good team. But the Patriots are. Vrabel's a difference maker. Josh McDaniels, you can tell his guidance is calming Drake Maye down. I think they've had a better game plan going into this week. Now, I will say I think this team, I had them making the playoffs. I might pull back on that a little bit. Not because I don't trust this team. I don't trust their overall weapons. I don't think they're still deep in playmakers, which could become a real issue down the stretch. Playing teams with elite quarterbacks, elite playmakers, elite defenses. It's something to really look out for these teams this year. But on to their division rivals, the Bills and the Jets game. So I did have the Jets covering. That did not happen. I can say I did not watch much of this game. The Bills continue the winning ways, dominant fashion. Josh Allen, I'm pretty sure, left the game at one point with blood gushing from his nose. He's all cleared up. He said after the game, he said he can breathe. He's doing good now. But that they're just. I told you last week, don't overreact to the Jets. And I think this week proved that. That proved that when it comes to them competing against top teams in the NFL, that they are just not there. They are not a playoff team. They're not going to go out there and beat the Bills or the Ravens or, well, with Burrow down, they might beat the Bengals. With the way the Chiefs are playing, maybe they might beat them. But they're not going to beat the really efficient, competitive teams that can just outgame them. So any stock you're putting in the Jets, just throw it away. It's done. I'm not putting stock in them. I like Justin Fields as a guy. I think he's a good guy. I think the team rallies around him, but I don't think this is a playoff team. And honestly, I think I had them winning 6 games. I think that's true. I think that's about what this team is. But another team I said not to overreact to, which this will transition away from my picks for this week, because as I said, I was 3 for 5 for the week. Good for me. A lot better than last week. But the other team I said don't overreact to was the Pittsburgh Steelers. I watched that game, and Seattle, once again on offense, didn't look incredible. I like Sam Darnold. Like I said, I don't love him. I like him. I do love Jackson Smith. Another 100-yard game back-to-back weeks. He's really establishing himself as that number 1 there, and I think that's incredible. I think this defense is just like I said last week, and I'm saying it this week, it's what we expected. It's what I expected. They're fast. They're attacking the ball, forcing turnovers. They're getting after the quarterback. They're doing everything they need to do to make the game in their favor. I put in my notes, Steelers got out defensed. The Steelers team that has been built on defense couldn't stop Kenneth Walker. They can't stop the run. It's a problem. Every team now knows this is what we're going to do against them. We're going to run the ball, and they can't stop us. Kenneth Walker having a bounce-back week. I mean, hell, last week I thought after seeing last week, I'm like, oh, Charbonnet's about to take this job. I was proven wrong. I even told someone in one of my fantasy leagues, go ahead, trade away K9. He's going to get replaced. I was wrong. I think K9 he felt the criticism from week 1, and he wanted to have a great bounce back week, and he did, outgaining Zach Charbonnet and really, I think, establishing himself as that RB1 that he should have been. But the Steelers, I didn't have them making the playoffs before the season. I don't have them making the playoffs now. I think even as the season goes on, they still have glaring flaws. And like I said with the Jets, I'll say with them, they don't have what it takes to compete with the best of the best. I don't see them beating the best teams because I don't think they have the teams to do it. The run game is still not established. They made a boneheaded play on special teams. That's coaching. When you see boneheaded plays, more often than not, I blame coaching because good coaching coaches that stuff out. These players should not go out there and make a play like that. That simply you tell your defender, hey, if the ball touches your hands on a kickoff, either you make sure it goes through the end zone or you grab that thing. Like, you can't do that. I mean, there was a second huge boneheaded play I saw this weekend. The other one we'll get to later in the Colts-Broncos game. But that was a glaring issue. Whew, man, I have to say, if you're a Steelers fan or a Jets fan, this is what your season's going to look like. It's going to look like you guys have some hope, and then the hope will be taken away. I'm sorry, you guys have a rough season ahead. Good luck. Next, I want to make a quick take again about the NFC East again. I don't know why I keep talking about this division. Well, I do know, because I think this division is so competitive for just absolutely no. I don't know what this division is. We saw what the Cardinals did last week. They beat up a bad Saints team. They beat a bad Panthers team, but almost let the Panthers come back. The Niners are playing with a backup quarterback for at least the next probably 4 weeks. So who knows? They snuck out a win against a bad Saints team, but the Saints, it's not like the Saints were out of the game. They don't have, like I said, they don't have the unit. When you don't have the overall playmakers on your team, you don't have stars on your team, it's hard to get those close, inched out victories. And the 49ers, luckily, they still have playmakers. They still have all pro talent. They know how to sneak this stuff out. But for the Rams had another great performance, throwing with Puka and Devontae Adams looking like the best receiving duo in football. And then you got the Seahawks, who just got a really nice win over the Steelers. So you got a division that I think is, at any of these teams could come out as the champion of it, or any of these teams could miss the playoffs and be looking at like we couldn't have done any better with what we were given. So that's the one division I'm going to be focusing on paying attention to most of the season, because I think that's the division that's going to worry me the most about if I'm right or wrong about the outcomes of those teams. Next, I'll talk about another team that really worries me, or two teams that really worried me in the Cincinnati Bengals playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the elephant in the room, Joe Burrow left the game with a turf toe injury. He was seen after the game in a walking boot and one crutch. And I'm recording this on 9/15, that is Monday. And the reports have came out that Joe Burrow will need surgery. So Burrow will be out for potentially 3 months. That's a season ender for any team. Jake Browning was able to come in and beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. Good on him. There's still, I think, a competitive offense because they have really good weapons. And they have a backup that's been in the system, and he's been in this role before, so he knows what he's doing. But this is a blow for the Bengals again. People have said it before, if Joe gets injured again, is he going to be listed as injury prone? I don't want to debate that. I hate labeling stars as injury prone because it puts a damper on the team. It puts a damper on the players. It's such a sad thought that a player can't stay healthy, so it's going to determine the outcome of their career. But the thing is, if you can't stay healthy, you can't play, you can't compete. So your career is not going to have the accolades you should get. It's very heartbreaking for Bengals fans. I feel so bad for you guys. You guys just spend all this money on offense, and you expect to have a high flying 30 points a game kind of offense, and with your star quarterback going down, now the season's up in the air. You beat the Jags. I think the Jags beat themselves more than you guys beat them. No offense, but I think the Jags are getting in their way again. But you should really, with the Bengals losing Burrow, this is probably a team that I had making the playoffs that I no longer will have making the playoffs, which means I have a playoff spot open now, which I will get to later talking about. But let's move on to the Jags. What is the goal here in Jacksonville? Is it to figure out if Trevor Lawrence really is your franchise quarterback? Is it to figure out if Travis Hunter really is a star wide receiver? Brian Thomas Jr. looked like he was in his own head. He had a rough day. That defense is not great. I like the coach. I think Liam Cohen's a good coach, but I think he's put in a very rough situation. How committed is your quarterback? And if he's not fully committed, how many wins can you get from that? I don't know what Trevor Lawrence is. He was supposed to be the greatest prospect since Elway. That's what I've heard. I heard that. And now he's here. He's performed. He's had enough games where you look at him and you're like, what is he? If there's any game to win, a game where the star quarterback on the other side goes down hurt and their backup comes in, that's the game you need to win. That's the game that where you establish yourself as a top quarterback, as a team leader, as there was no reason Jacksonville shouldn't have won that game the moment Burrow went out. But they didn't. They didn't put themselves in the position to win. They didn't make all the necessary plays, and I'm going to put it on the quarterback, not the coach, because I think the game plan wasn't a bad game plan. I think the execution was the problem. The execution's on players. You need to execute. So, once again, I'm sorry, Bengals fans. I wish Burrow a speedy recovery. Football is way more fun when Joe Shiesty's out there. And the Jaguars, good luck to your season, because I think that 8-9, 9-8 record that I was predicting is going to be so true. You are going to be just good enough to miss the playoffs. Barely, but just good enough. Next, let's talk about the Colts-Broncos. Colts-Broncos. With the Bengals probably missing the playoffs with Burrow going down with injury, these are the two teams that I would say are the most likely to replace the Bengals in the playoffs. I think the Broncos had a much better showing this week. I think Bo Nix looked more comfortable. I think he was getting the ball out quicker. I think he's still really good about getting the ball out to the open receiver. Didn't matter name. Like, we didn't even see Courtland Sutton most of the game. It was Franklin or Mims, and I think it's such a good quality in a quarterback. It's where they don't feel so pressured to focus on one guy. They feel like they can spread the ball to him, or do this, or do that. It gives more, I think, transparency on the overall offense, that they're not one-dimensional. And that's a Sean Payton thing. I will say that's very much coaching, but I think it's good that your quarterback can do that. I think we saw a little more out of Bo Nix this week, but I still think I'm not sold on this team yet. I think they were literally one boneheaded play away from winning this game. But at the end of the day, they put themselves in a position where all the Colts needed was a game-winning field goal. Now, it was a 60-yard field goal set up. The kicker went out there. Most people didn't expect him to make the field goal, and he didn't. But like I talked about earlier, the second boneheaded play I saw this week, why are you pushing off the center during a field goal? You know he's not going to make that kick. You have to know that it's a 60-yard field goal. Yes, there's a lot of kickers that are going to make it. If Brandon Aubrey was back there, yeah, I'm betting money he going to make it. But this guy, you should play smart here. You don't play aggressive, you play smart. The moment you touch that center, you know that's an illegal play, you know that's a 15-yard penalty. A 15-yard penalty turns a 60-yard field goal to a 45-yard field goal. That's a game changer. That literally went from a win in your win column to a loss because of one play. Now, that's not the only thing that led to that, but I will say what really led to such a great hot start for the Colts, because I want to talk more about them, because I think that's the team that really showed us something first 2 weeks. Daniel Jones, formerly known as Danny Dimes, but I've heard a lot of people in India trying to crown him as Indiana Jones, which I just love. But listen to this. From week 1 and week 2, he currently has a 74.2 completion rate. He has 616 total yards, 5 total touchdowns, no turnovers, with 111.1 passer rating, and they are 2-0. Maybe Daniel Jones can play football. Michael Pittman looked good. The other receivers looked pretty good. Jonathan Taylor's a beast. I really thought this would be his fall-off year, which is my mistake, because I was a huge Jonathan Taylor fan up until this season, but I just was a little wavery. I was wavering about him a little bit, but man, I was wrong. I'm sorry to him. Baller. Defense looked great. Defense hot to the ball. They were attacking that offense all game. It was great. It was a very fun game. I would say the biggest flaw of the game, though, was the amount of holding / pass interference plays. I think the refs were getting a little flag happy. I get it. You see a tug or you see a grab, you have to throw the flag, but it was getting a little excessive. It certainly was at times taking me a little bit out of the game, because you're like, oh, another penalty. Oh, another penalty. It's like, when are they going to stop? But overall, both teams played very well, and I think they both could play better, but I think as the season progresses, these are two teams that can really mold even better. Now, I think halfway through the season, you're going to see the Broncos being better than the Colts, because I think based on coaching and overall that defensive play and just playmakers, I think the Broncos may have more of that. And I would definitely bet on a Hall of Fame coach in Sean Payton, or future Hall of Fame coach, over Shane Steichen, even though I like Shane, and I think he's doing wonders with Daniel Jones. But we all know, I said this in my first episode, the Saints started 2-0 last year, and we saw what happened. They came back down to reality. So week 3, I think, is going to be the big test. Will they come back down to reality? Will the Colts taper off a little bit and be the team we all thought they were going to be coming into this season? Because I think I only had them winning 4 games, and they're already 2 games in. So, and they're 2-0. So maybe I'm just wrong about them, and maybe this is a team that is going to be very competitive long-term in this season and a future playoff team. Now, that transitions to 2 teams that I still don't think are making the playoffs, and it was probably the most exciting game of the day. I think they had like 5 league changes in the fourth quarter, maybe more. I don't know. It was insane. The Giants and the Cowboys. Who would have thought this was going to be the best game? I can say their defensive backs on both sides, take blame. Take your blame. You guys are the reason this game was what it was, because the Giants defense was getting after Dak. The Cowboys defense, I've told you, they don't want to admit it, but they're missing Micah Parsons, and it's going to be something that's going to be played out throughout the season. But first, before I talk about what I dislike about the game, let's give some credit. Russell Wilson set his career high in passing yards. Russell Wilson went, 30 for 41, 73 completions percentage, 450 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. So they got the ball to Neighbors. They were doing what they were supposed to do. Cam Scatterbo looked really good. They're going to feed him the ball. He's a bruising juice kind of back. You put him out there, and he's going to give you everything he had. It's just like he was in college. That's who he is in the NFL. But the game went to overtime. Now, before I talk about the biggest blunder in the game, let's give credit where credit's due. Cowboys got Brandon Aubrey as their main kicker. He's probably, I would say, the best kicker in the NFL right now. Has a potential to be one of the greatest of all times. He's hit multiple 60-yard field goals this game. He kept them in this game with his leg, and he tied it in the fourth quarter, and he won it in overtime. Props to him. But Russ, man, I was calling for you to be benched last week. I was saying it's time for Jackson Dart to come out and play, or hell, give Jameis the start because it was going to be more entertaining. Well, you put on the entertainment. You had the excitement, and you had the game in your hands. Your defense didn't stop the Cowboys once in overtime. They stopped them twice. But guess what happened to you? You gave the Cowboys a third chance. You threw an interception, a poor ball. It was going to the defense. All he had to do was just wait for it. That is not how you win games, Russ. You know this. You were donning up all game. You were playing a phenomenal game. And you throw a pick in overtime? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Russ? You don't throw a pick there. Worst case scenario, you punt the football and give your defense that shot. You don't throw a pick and take you just don't do that. You can't do that. You are a veteran quarterback. You know better. You know if there's any time for ball security to be 100%, it's the end of the fourth quarter and it's overtime. You need to have ball security. You need to play smart. You played smart all up until that moment, and it gave the Cowboys the win. Cowboys earned it. They fought hard, but that was the game. You lost that game, Russ. The Giants lost that game. That was their game to win. They were competitive. They were consistent. They were showing that they know what it takes to compete. But because of your poor decision, all they know is losing already under you, Russ. 0-2 to start the season. You should be very disappointed. The Giants should be disappointed in this outcome. This was a game to win. You had it. All you had to do was drive down and put them in field goal position. And they gave you multiple opportunities to do it, and you couldn't do it. So, week 2, I'm saying it again, until you prove me otherwise, I think week 3, they should roll out Jackson Dart. I think it's time to put the rookie out there. If you're not going to win with Russell Wilson playing like crap, and you're not going to win with Russell Wilson playing like that, then you aren't going to win with Russ. So it's time to just put the old man to the side. Tell him, if you want to go to another team, we'll trade you, and just put Jackson Dart out there. What's the worst can happen? You lose. You're already 0-2. You might as well lose and figure out if you have a franchise quarterback or not. It's ridiculous. It's I hate seeing this. I hate seeing holding your rookie back when there's no reason to at the moment. Now I get it. If Russ started 1-1, give him an opportunity. And I think then you just keep Russ there. If Russ played good week 1 and week 2, then I'd say, okay, you're 0-2, but at least he played good back-to-back weeks. But he played bad 1 week. He played good 1 week. What's going to happen week 3? You're going to let him go out there and then he's going to play bad again? Or he's going to play good and you lose? And the Giants really need to look at themselves and say, what's the best way to move forward? And I think Brian Daboll himself have to look and say, hey, how am I going to keep my job another year? Because he's not going to keep his job putting Russ out there week after week. That's not how you're going to do it. But that's enough. That's enough on them. I don't want to bash the Giants because I like the Giants to win 7 games this year. I had a lot of hope for them, and I think they have pieces to be a better team. I mean, I'm friends with a Giants fan, and I spent so much time Saturday. I talked to him. We had a nice long, it wasn't long, but like a 10-15 minute conversation. I was telling him about why he should have faith in his Giants and why they could beat the Cowboys. And I texted him during the game when they were playing competitive. I'm like, hey, look at this. Things are going well. And then you screw it up. It's like, why are you going to give your fans a little bit of hope just to rip it away from them? It's not fair to the fans. It's not fair to the league. It's time to put the young guy in. Week 3 should be the start of Jackson Dart. And until something changes my mind, I think every week on the pod, this is what I'm going to say. There we go. Have it. Now let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens. So the Baltimore Ravens home opener hosting the Cleveland Browns, our 30th anniversary. Let's go. It was beautiful. Offense got us to a slow start, but we're clicking by the time the second half happened. Defense played solid all game. Roquan Smith was the player of the game. He was, every time I looked, he was making the tackle, fumble for a touchdown return. Man, that was just, Roquan was the player of the game. I gotta give him shout outs right away. Awesome. Before I talk about how great we did, I do want to stop and say just an overall thank you to Joe Flacco for everything you did for the Ravens organization when you were here. It's still to this day sad seeing you playing for another team, but it's also really nice seeing you still playing at your age when you left us and a lot of people wrote you off. I mean, you went to the Broncos and you didn't really end well there. You were in the Jets for a little bit, then you were at Philly, then you were back at the Jets, and then you were in the Browns, then you were with the Colts, now you're back with the Browns. It's so nice. As the young fan in me that fell in love with football because of what you and John Harbaugh did for this team when I was a young fan, I will forever be thankful. I mean, that's why today, the jersey I have hanging on the wall, that in the week 1 episode, that's the jersey I talked about. That's the jersey my dad bought me when I was a kid and we drafted Joe Flacco. Now, it doesn't fit me anymore, so you're not going to see me wear it, but I still have it and I'll never get rid of it. Forever. It means so much. It meant so much to me as a Ravens fan, being able to see Joe Flacco come back in a building and to a warm response because we love Joe. Now, there's a lot of players that may come back and may get booed out the building. He's not one of them. You brought us a Super Bowl and one of the most unforgettable playoff performances of all time. So thank you, Joe. And I'm sorry we had to kick your ass because that's what we did to the Browns. They made it competitive early because that's a divisional game. That's what happens. But playmakers and good elite all-pro players step up in clutch moments. Our defense played great. Nate Wiggins with a huge interception. Like I said, Roquan Smith with a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Our defense was just flying, and I still need more pass rush. I will say, though, Teddy Buchanan looked good again. Mike Green looked really good again. We got to give them more reps. And Robinson, 95, he looked good, too. I think we have some young talent that really is trying to cement themselves as who's going to be the future starter in either that linebacker spot next to Roquan or as that main pass rusher. So I think they're trying to figure themselves out. I wouldn't be surprised if halfway through the season, one of those three guys really established themselves as a cornerstone of this defense. I would love to see it. I think Jaire Alexander not playing, I think he was injured in the offseason. I think he didn't come back 100%. I think he rushed it for week 1. We limited snaps, and when he was out there, he was bad. Wasn't available today. TJ Tampa looked a lot more younger, more athletic. I think what I said originally is how I really feel about Jaire. We're bringing him in for the playoffs, not for the season. It would be great to have a veteran presence in the playoffs when that time comes to avoid young, dumb rookie mistakes or just young player mistakes. I think his overall intelligence is worth way more than his play. But we'll see how I'm hoping he'll bounce back, and throughout the season we'll make some good plays and we'll show that he was a good signing. I mean, we're not paying him that much. So not paying him too much. We didn't have high expectations, but we had high expectations for the defense in general. And I think today is a good start to what we can see for the upcoming years, or at least upcoming season. Like I said about the Commanders last week, is what I've said about this. If you're a great team, you have to bully the bad teams and compete with the good teams. Week 1, we competed with the Bills. We had a really good competitive game against the Bills. We may have let it up, but they're a great team. You gotta expect that. And then week 2, we play the Browns, who are not a good team. And when it's all said and done, we bullied them by the end of the game. That's what you need to do in the NFL when you're a top team. And that's what I think a lot of those teams that are trying to get to that next level are trying to figure out. Teams like the Texans, I would say from last year. Let me talk the Texans, the Packers, even the Seahawks from last year, the Commanders. It's like these are teams that I think are on the brink of being really great teams, but you gotta do those basic things. The Packers have made that jump. I'm pretty sure the Texans play tonight. I think they're playing the Buccaneers. This would be a good test game. The Bucs are playoff. They have been a playoff team. They've been a good team. So let's see how competitive they are. And the Commanders now. You got to see if you can compete with these elite teams. So it's something that I'm glad we're able to do, because that is one of the most important parts of the NFL is in establishing yourself as an elite team. Other bright spots. Zay Flowers is our wide receiver 1. Solid. Love it. He looks shifty. He can get open. He's making great catches. He's making good plays. He's seen the field way better than he did last year. I think he's elevated so much from last season to this season that he's no longer going to squeak 1,000 yards. He's going to get 1,000 yards. Touchdowns are going to come. He's going to be a great piece for us long term. Tez Walker, shout out to young kid. Last year, I think my brother and a few other people that I know were really high on Tez. They've been since last year. Personally, I felt last year he didn't get enough play time because I think the playbook was something he took a little longer to get. I'm not going to fault anyone on that. It's not easy. You come into a pro. If you didn't play a pro style offense in college, you got to come into a pro. Now you're in the pros. You gotta. It's a little more of a learning curve for some. But hey, in his NFL career, 3 catches, 3 touchdowns. Could retire today. That'd be pretty cool. That'd be a pretty cool touchdown to reception ratio right there. But he's not going to retire today, and I think he can be a really good future wide receiver on our team. And in that factor, I will give a shout out to DeAndre Hopkins, who people were saying he's washed. Lamar didn't think so. D-Hop didn't think so. He's still making those insane catches, and it's amazing, and I love seeing it, and it's just wonderful. As a Ravens fan, you've got to watch so many great players come and dominate us sometimes. So it's nice to see them doing it for us, such as Derrick Henry, now D-Hop. It's nice to see these guys joining our side and doing it transition to that, Derrick Henry did have a rough day today. He's not going to rush for over 100 yards every game, guys. We have to just be realistic. He is over 30. There are some the defensive game plan was to stop him. The thing is, just because you stop him, you're not going to stop Lamar and everyone else. That's not what's going to happen. But they stopped him. They slowed him down. But that's why we got him, though. It's not always about the production of a player. It's the fear of a player. That's why we got D-Hop. That's why we have Henry. That's why you bring in some of these veteran presence. It's not always what they do. It's what they force the defenses to do. That defense, when DeAndre Hopkins is out there, has to account for him. They have to put either their best corner on him, or they have to double up on him because they know he can make those insane catches. For Derrick Henry, you have to stack the box. You have to hit him. You have to put your big boys up front that are going to tackle and hit hard. Sometimes when you have your bigger packages on defense, that's when our speedy, quick receivers can get open, or Lamar can do his thing. Even though we didn't see a lot of running from Lamar, but that stuff like that will open up in the future, which is great. So even though his production yesterday wasn't the best, his overall presence was exactly what we needed to help us secure that victory. Now, for some things that I do want us to work on, because whether you win or lose, there's always improvements. One, I think we got to get Bateman more involved. I think last year we got him very well involved. I think him and Lamar have a really good connection. I think Lamar was sailing some balls early in the day. Some balls that should have either been one that should have been caught by Rashad, one that was, I think it was 2 overthrew Zay. So we got to clean that up a little bit. I like that we finished strong, but I don't think we started as strong offensively. I would like to see Andrews get more involved. I think our plan for the season was for likely to be our dominant tight end, and with him going down and Ricard going down, it has put a lot more pressure on our other tight ends, and More so, I think it's also affected our run game because we're so used to having Ricard establishing the run block and not having him back there as much. We saw a lot more Justice Hill today, and I think everyone knows when we put Justice Hill out there, we're probably not running the ball. We're going to be passing the ball, and it's still a pretty evident thing. I would like for us to change that a little bit. I don't want to be so obvious on what running backs are coming out for which packages. I would like it to be a little more balanced, especially just overall. So I think those are a few things we can work on. But other than that, great showing. I really like how this team is performed this week. And like I said again in the Lions take, we got the Lions next week. And the Lions should be worried about us just like we should be worried about them. They have a very competent team, very gritty team, and they can put up a lot of points. So I'm excited to go to the game. I'm excited to see how both teams play. And yeah, that was amazing. So, hey, go Ravens. After week 2, I wanted to... I think it's some things have become glaringly obvious to me. I think there's a set fewer teams that have a chance to make the playoffs this year that I probably wouldn't have predicted previously. And I think there's a set fewer teams that would have made the playoff that you would think were making the playoffs that may miss out. So let's start on the makes. I think the couple of teams I really think have a real chance to make the playoffs this season. First are the Colts and the Broncos. I talked about that earlier. I think both teams, as the season goes on, with the Bengals losing Joe Burrow, most likely for the season. I mean, 3 months is basically the season at this point. I mean, we're beginning of almost middle of September. I mean, that's October, November, possibly December. Like, even if this team has is fringe playoff team by the time Burrow gets back, it takes you a week or two after coming back from an injury to get going. I'm counting them probably out for the season. So those are two teams to look into. The Falcons last night really showed me that if they can really get everyone going, they can get Drake London consistently involved. They can get Kyle Pitts consistently involved. They can keep relying on Bijan. Maybe put some touchdowns on the board. This is a team that could sneak out a division win over the Bucs. Depending on, I have to say tonight, we'll waver my picks a little bit. I want to see how the Bucs perform tonight, which we'll see how close they are to really close to Atlanta. And then another team I got to see play tonight would be the Raiders, who I think had a good showing last week, and I think tonight's game against the Chargers are really going to establish how good they are. Because if they can beat the Chargers tonight, they're a team that I think has a playoff potential. If they don't beat the Chargers tonight, but they look competitive, that's a playoff potential. Now, if the Chargers whoop them, take us out. I'm not into them. And lastly, the Cardinals. Now, I thought the Cardinals were going to start hot. I told everyone they start hot and they temper off as the season goes on. But they had they have some players. Was it Will Johnson, number 0 on that defense? Defensive Rookie of the Year. That he is up there for that. He's a beast. He's with Budda Baker getting up in age, he's going to be the best player on that defense. Calais Campbell at his age is still making great plays. I mean, he made the game-winning play. The offense, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. still needs a connection with Kyler. They don't have it, but he has it with Trey McBride, and McBride's a great tight end. And once again, last week I gave him the credit. I'll give him the credit again. James Conner is such a difference maker for that team. And even though his stats aren't always heavy and pretty, I think what he can do in key down scenarios, it's a difference maker. It truly, I think, sets the Cardinals up to have a really dominant season. Maybe not a lot of wins, but enough wins to get into the playoffs. But we have to see how the season goes on. Now, on the flip side, 4 teams that I think should be fearful of missing the playoffs. One is the Niners. You lost Brock Purdy. You won today with Mac Jones, and Mac Jones had a pretty good showing, but you're still down a tight end because of injuries. You're down Purdy for at least, they said, probably up to 5 weeks. So I would say I think 3 more weeks of Mac Jones. Who knows how healthy C-Mac's going to be all season. That team still's got young players that are trying to learn their roles. The Saints made it competitive, and I don't think it should have been competitive, being that the Saints aren't that good of a team. So you really have to, sometimes strength of opponent really matters when evaluating a team. You have to take that into factors. So Niners, I had them missing the playoffs already, but I think they should be worried because I think a lot of people had them making the playoffs, and they should be worried. They should definitely take a second and they really need a game plan until Purdy gets back to make sure they can stay on a winning ways, and maybe they can squeak out a playoff berth, but I think they should be more concerned. Next, the Bengals. I think that's obvious. Joe Burrow is out. Without Burrow, you got to rely on a quarterback that is just not to that level, and you already don't have a great defense. I mean, week 1, Browns almost beat y'all. This game, the Jaguars almost beat. You snuck out 2 close wins against 2 teams that beat themselves more than you beat them. That should worry you when you play the elite teams. And it's like I always say, if you're a good team, you should be able to bully the bad teams and compete with the good teams. If you're competing with the bad teams, that says more about you than it does the teams that are bad. Because the teams that are bad are going to come out and play their hardest, and they're going to do everything they can to win every week, no matter how bad they are, because they want to establish a culture and they want to find a way to get to the winning ways. So the Bengals, if you're really a top elite team, you should have smoked the Browns week 1. You should have smoked the Jaguars week 2. You may be 2-0, but don't be confident. Don't think that 2-0 is going to establish you as an elite team, because it's not. So I would really take a second and see where your priorities lie. And are you playing to hold on to the season and try to sneak in the playoffs? Or are you playing for next season? Which I think you're playing for next season again, which is a habit now with the Bengals and Burrow. You paid all this money on offense, and the biggest key component in that is your quarterback, and now he's going to miss potentially 3 months. You worry. Next is the Commanders. I had the Commanders going 12-5, wild card spot, and making the playoffs. And I still really like them to win more than 10 games. But I think I'm simmering a little bit on the 12 wins. I think this is a team that is like I've been saying, I'm afraid of how they're going to look against better competition. Now, and I don't mean how they're going to look against the Eagles, because that's a divisional game. And I will always excuse, like even with the Bengals, I can excuse week 1 because you played a divisional opponent. Whenever you play a divisional opponent, it's going to be a closer, tougher game than most. So whenever they play the Eagles, however that game goes, I can't judge them on that. But when they play other top teams, that's when you establish how they're going to be. When they play other teams that are more that middle realm teams, how are you going to compete against them? The Commanders should 2-0 the Cowboys, 2-0 the Giants. But with the way they're playing right now, the Cowboys could beat them. I mean, they put up 18 points against the Packers. Cowboys put up over 30 points. Cowboys can put up 30 points. They have the team to do it. So the Commanders can't put up 30 points. They're going to lose to the Cowboys. The Giants just showed you they can put up 30 points. And that defensive line is a problem. Now, yes, you beat the Giants week 1, and that was a upset that I did not get. But don't think that when they play y'all again, that it can't be a different outcome. You should be concerned. I think this is a team that I think this is a team that knows what they want to be, but they don't know how to get there quite yet. Their defense isn't what they were hoping it would be. The offensive line is not shown up like it should. The run game is not established enough. And outside of Terry McLaurin, your weapons are not there. You can't rely all on a second-year quarterback. You just can't do it. And I don't think sophomore slump is, throw out the window. I don't think Jayden Daniels is due for a sophomore slump, because I don't think it's him. It's kind of like last year with the Texans. I don't think it was Stroud. I think the team as a unit, even though they made the playoffs, that unit wasn't as impressive as it was the year before. And I think when it comes to teams, you have to establish a really good unit around your quarterback so you can progress and he can evolve even more, because you don't want your young quarterback carrying the whole team. That is dangerous. A young quarterback that feels like they have to do everything, they're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. He's going to have the ball knocked out when he should have thrown it away. He's going to throw pick trying to force a play when he shouldn't. It's things that are going to happen that wouldn't be normal for him to do, but because of the pressure of the team not being able to perform, that's going to put a damper on him. And lastly, the last team I have that I think I'm worried about playoff status, which I know maybe I'm gonna it's gonna not age well at all, and never does. Every time anyone speaks this into the world, it always ends up biting them in the butt. But the Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs, I watched the game against the Eagles. It was honestly the main game I cared about this Sunday besides the Ravens game. I really wanted to see how these teams competed. Just a little side note in the game. That tush push, I don't think the NFL should ban it on the fact of injuries or because it makes the game ugly, because I think if they can do it, anyone can do it, they just do it better. But man, is it boring football. And I think if they do ban the tush push, it would force the Eagles to have a more competitive game. It would force them to learn how to do something different in those scenarios, which would force them to open their playbook up and may give other teams a chance, because it's not that the play is unstoppable, but the play is not easily stoppable, and it made the game ugly. And honestly, I think it was a game that game was not a fun game to watch. I don't think either teams looked fun out there. The Eagles are just going to run it, dump it. It's a team that has so much playmakers, but yet the offense seems so simplistic at times. They really are relying on Saquon Barkley to do his thing. In short yardage scenarios, they're looking for the tush push, and both receivers aren't even really getting involved as much as they should. You have two receivers that on most teams will go out there and be their top performers every week. And it seems like the game plan is still, we're going to run the ball through Saquon Barkley, we're going to do the tush push, and we're going to win this game just by simple. And simple's not bad, simple's winning, but it isn't fun football. And I will say that it is not fun to watch. And maybe I'm sorry, maybe I'm just being a downer, but it's not fun. And the NFL, I'm not saying the NFL has to do something about it, but it is something. If they do something about it, I can understand why now. I don't think I understood it during the offseason, but watching that game specifically, I understand. Now back to the Chiefs. Mahomes is there, Reed is there, Kelsey's there, Chris Jones is there. They're still, it looks the same, but doesn't look the same. It's not what they were. I read I caught a stat earlier today. The Chiefs at one point during, I guess, the height of the dynasty were averaging close to almost 30 points a game. Now they're averaging close to 21 points a game, which is pretty huge margin. They haven't been able to establish true playmakers. Travis is not who he was. I mean, Travis isn't going to be the best playmaker on your team anymore. And he made a costly error in helping a catch that he probably would make 9 out of 10 times, but basically tossed it right to an eagle. That didn't look good. You don't have an established wide receiver. Hollywood Brown is just he's inconsistent. Juju's inconsistent. Xavier Worthy's out for who knows how long. Rashee Rice is going to come back eventually, but it's been so long since he's played, based on injury and now suspension. When he comes back, is he even going to be the same player? I mean, we've seen it happen so many times where a player that had a lot of promise take a significant amount of time off and they're not the same player. I would say the most significant one is Calvin Ridley, with how missing so much time when he was a Falcon, that even though he can still be a good member of a team, he's not what I think he should have been. And I think that's going to be Rashee Rice. I think when he comes back, he's not going to be what he should have been, because he's already missed so much pivotal, significant time. And they have no run game. They can't run the ball. Pacheco broke his leg, and now ever since he's came back, he's not the same back. He don't have that same oomph that he had his rookie year. Mahomes is scrambling more than ever. I think that what they said in the first half, Mahomes had over 70 yards rushing and like less than 70 passing. It was like, you can't just rely on Mahomes' magic week in and week out. They're 0-2 now, and it doesn't get any easier. They have tough games to play. They still have to play the Broncos 2 times. They still have to play the Raiders 2 times. And they still have to play the Chargers again. And I know they have dominated their division year after year, but the teams that they are not getting any better, and these other teams are getting better. They have to play the Ravens still. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other teams they still have yet to play that are really good teams. Now, I'm not going to just chop it all off and say, "Yep, it's done. Chiefs are over. Dynasty's canceled. They're missing the playoffs and they're going on a drought." No, I'm not ridiculous. I'm just saying it's a possibility that you should be concerned because they don't look good. They don't look like a good football team. They don't look how they have looked. You're seeing the names, you see the color, you see the logo. It's all looking similar, but it's not the same, and you should be worried. Chiefs fans should really be worried, and they shouldn't be worried because the quarterback's like, no, the quarterback's great. Mahomes has proven how great he is in 2 weeks, because even in losses, he's the best player on the field for them, and it's not even close. You can't put it all on Andy Reid because he's coaching his butt off. I mean, he's drawing up everything he can. It's not his fault. They don't have the talent to back it up, and they don't have the talent on either side of the ball to back it up. They're just not a overall very talented team. I mean, this team could be a 10-7 playoff team. They could be an 11-6 playoff team. But would you be shocked if they were 10-7 and missed the playoffs? I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, think about it. Let's say based on just this season, they split the division. They go 3-3 in the division, and they already are 0-2, and they won those in division loss. So that's 4 losses minimum you have. Now it doesn't mention. Now you're going to play the Ravens at one point. The Ravens in season have played a lot better against the Chiefs. I would say we're going to beat them when we play them. So that's now 5 losses. So that's already 5 losses you're probably going to have on the season just based on not having the talent to compete with these teams. And that's not all the games you're playing. So I really think the Chiefs need to look in the mirror and say, yes, we've won multiple Super Bowls. Yes, we have been in the competitive picture since we got Patrick Mahomes. Yes, we are one of the greatest dynasties of recent memory. We know what we are, and we know how good we are. But at the same time, sometimes it's time to sit back, reevaluate, and find a new way, not just to win, but to revamp. I think this team needs a revamp. I think this season is going to be the tellingest season of it. If they make it to the playoffs by the end of this year, then this whole take just makes me look stupid. I'm okay with it because it's a risk I'm willing to make. But if they don't make the playoffs, I mean, Travis is probably going to retire. Chris Jones ain't getting any younger. You've already paying Pat a lot. You don't have your established receivers. That O-line isn't that great. I mean, they're penalties, and they don't know who they really want to start at tackles. I mean, they're putting some guy there. He's not looking great. I mean, this is a team that should be more concerned than I think they are. And it's just because they still have this aura they're walking around with. While I think so many other teams don't see that aura like they used to. I think this big hovering presence of, we're the Chiefs, we win games, we go to Super Bowls, we're better than you, is just not, it's not as threatening anymore. I think what the Eagles did to them in the Super Bowl knocked it down a little bit. I think after their week 1 performance, it's knocked it down a little bit. And now week 2 performance, it's knocked it down a little bit. You're looking at this team, it's like, okay, if Patrick Mahomes, let's just say Patrick Mahomes gets hurt because he's running more, he's taking shots, he's not protecting himself as well as he could because he's trying to make plays. just saying, I hope this doesn't happen because I don't want to see anyone get hurt. But if Mahomes get hurt, would this team win a game? Like, seriously, would this team go not win a game without Mahomes? I like their backup's Gardner Minshew, and I trust me, I'm a Gardner guy. I like him. He's a cool guy. But he's not winning with this team. Mahomes isn't winning with this team right now. So Gardner's not going to win with it. So they really need to do something. So, Chiefs fans, good luck. Chiefs team, good luck. Well, let's see how the season plays out. And that's going to wrap up episode 3. It's been so much fun doing this. I just want to once again give a shout out to everyone that has supported me so far on this journey. It's only been a couple weeks doing this. It's a slow start, but I'm hoping that we can keep gaining traction, and I appreciate all the love and support I'm getting. And please, once again, like, subscribe, give me your comments and concerns. Like I said, I would love to engage with everyone checking in on this podcast, because like I said, I'm not doing this just for me. I'm doing it for so many other people out there, and I want people to have another outlet to come and talk sports and listen to cool opinions and listen to just overall just me. I'm so appreciative being able to have this opportunity, and if you give me the opportunity to be on your screen and or a part of your lives, I'm so grateful for that. So once again, like, subscribe. I hope everyone has a fantastic whatever day this pod comes out. And then we'll be prepping for Thursday Night Football. I'm pretty sure it's Bills Miami. That should be a fun game. I'll drop a video on my breakdown of that. And like I said, everyone have a great week, and thank you.